Well, good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the October 16th regular board meeting of the Cornwall Board of Education. I ask that everyone please rise and follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, very good. Thank you. We're going to go to the recognition of visitors. Jump right in, please. If anyone wishes to make comments, we'll have two sessions, one in the beginning of this meeting and one at the end. All I ask is that you come forward, speak into the microphone, state your name, and limit your comments so that any other members of the audience can also participate. We're going to have a 30-minute allocated time for any public comments in the first session, if warranted. And I'll just open the public comment period right now for anyone who wishes to come forward and grab a mic. Fantastic. Well, then let's move right along with the agenda. Next, we have a presentation about the district-wide capital project update from our friends at the Palumbo Group. I'm going to ask Terry to introduce our presenters tonight. Good to see you, Lou, and go from there.
Thank you, John. So we have Scott and Lou back to join us. We last saw them in mid-August for an update based on the progress from the end of the school year until that point. Now they're here to update us on the status of Phase 1, so what's been done since August 17th up until now, and then kind of a look ahead with regards to the remainder of Phase 1 and a peek into the timeline of Phase 2. So Scott, I'll turn it on over to you.
Appreciate it. Thank you for everybody for having me. Again, Scott Butler with the Palumbo Group. Stop me at any time. We're going to kind of go through, like Terry said, with Phase 1, and then we'll take a pause. Anybody have any update questions, big scope questions, et cetera, and then we'll jump into Phase 2. I gave everybody a handout earlier, so we're just going to phase along. So a little bit on Phase 1, the buildings that we had scope on were Cornwall Elementary, Willow Ave Elementary, Cornwall Middle School, and the high school. I got a couple photos, give an overview of where we are, where we're heading. Then we will give a little bit of a budget update, because it matters when we're giving these kind of updates, and then an outlook on where we are with Phase 2, programming, project, and SED. All right, so the slides are almost identical the way that we presented them on in August, and that was intentional, so that way we can give updates periodically without changing form or fit. So as you can see here, items 1 through 5 were the scopes of work identified at the Willow Avenue Elementary, or Cornwall Elementary, hazardous abatement, piping, replacing of first and second floor, hallway bathrooms, installation of exterior sewer lines, some classroom casework and sinks, and Central Hudson upgrade. Over on the right there, you can see what we've completed and where we are in terms of a punch list, and then what we moved for a variety of reasons from the summer into, and then down below, kind of our plan of attack here. So for instance, due to a lot of design and Central Hudson coordination, a lot of their work, we're going to move to the spring, coordinate trenching through the parking lot, putting in new primary service cables, a new transformer, and we didn't want to go ahead and start doing a lot of that work with the weather turning right and have the potential to not restore the way that we needed to, so that way we can leave a plowable parking lot. So a lot of the decisions we're making as a group, what's the best interest in getting some of the work done and leaving the district in their operational readiness as we go. Replace classroom sinks. The manufacturer had a little bit of some fabrication issues. We've been coordinating with them over the past couple of months to get that rectified. Right now, we're currently scheduled to remove and replace the temporary units over Thanksgiving break. So when the students and faculty come back right after that break, everything that should be done will be done, and any punch list that they will have will continue on nights and second shift. Willow Avenue Elementary school definitely had a majority of the work for this scope. Hazardous abatement materials inside the first, second, and third floor bathrooms, pretty much complete, and onto punch list. Other remaining work, replacing stairway, handrails, and the reconfiguration of the second floor reception area. A lot of code compliance issues there, so we want to make sure that we get it right. Again, a lot of this stuff is coordinated second shift and weekend work. And then you get some of the bigger areas, which is the replacement of the loading dock ramp and the new building. We actually poured the slab today. I've got a couple of photos in there, and then I can give you a couple updates on that structural steel erection and outfitting in the next couple of months. And then you can see there at the loading dock, we will continue on through the winter months, finishing up around March. Staircase and handrails, we want to make sure, again, with that being code compliant, we want to make sure that we're going back and forth with the architect, and that's correct. That'll be a series of weekends once everything is fabricated on site. So we're looking through November into December for there. A lot of the interior and exterior doors, a lot of them are upgrades, a lot of them are code compliance, a lot of them are just brand new finishes or new doors in general. So a lot of that is going to be over Christmas break, and that's really because of the selective demo nature. We want to make sure that we're, it's an event that may take more than a day or two of a window, right? And rushing through a weekend doesn't leave the school in a comfortable readiness operation for Monday morning, right? So we can just pick our spots. A lot of coordination. Again, these are upgrades. A lot of these are remove and replace. So we want to make sure that again, making sure that the school maintains their operation ability as we're meandering through these nights and weekends, right? That remains our top priority. Middle school and high school. Again, we also had bathroom replacements in the C, D, and E wing. Again, we also had various interior and exterior door changes, which we will do again over Christmas. And then we had some exterior, both the middle school and the high school, waterproofing, brick replacement, and we're pretty much weathered out there. So we're going to have to wait for a little bit of warmer weather. It's when it drops below 50 degrees at night, you have risk of the bricks not holding, right? So. The last bit of phase one work was work we did not attempt this summer, which was at the Cornwall and the Hudson. We're currently working with Tetra Tech and the school district to get all of those documents procured here in the next week or so to be out to bid. So hopefully by the end of December, we are back to the board meeting with another recommendation for that school's summer of 2024 work. Again, bathrooms. On the first, second floor, I think there are 5 bathrooms in that building, as well as full building window replacement. A little bit of some photos here. So if you haven't already, so these are actually this bathroom here, both first and second floor. A little bit of finishes, accent tiles, new floors, new walls. Pretty much everything you see here in this photo is brand new. The main goal for this project was getting a lot of the facilities up to the ADA requirements. So we have ADA sinks, ADA facilities, ADA bathrooms. And then what we actually accomplished today was the beginning of so we did a lot of the foundation work over the summer, right? So we just finished that concrete slab today, and now we have some interior work, and we're starting to build our structure for our loading dock cover starting later in this week. And then budget. So we had 5 different contracts go out, 2 abatement contracts that went out to bid, 2 general contracts that went out to bid. We had a joint mechanical and plumbing contract, and then we have electrical contracts. So sorry, that's 6. At the end of the day, we ended up having 4 contractors. The abatement contractors for both locations were the same prime, and the general contractor for both contracts were the same prime. With allowances, so these are monies that we add to the contractor's bid to account for any unforeseen conditions, things of that nature. So with that in told, I think we are running about $100,000 over what we originally bid for phase 1. And a lot of that had to do with unforeseen conditions. You open up a wall and you find more asbestos abatement on mechanical pipes. And then it's a collective decision that we went ahead and took care of that as we were going through the job. There's no better time than right when it's sitting right in front of you and all the contractors are in place and you've got the time for it. So, most of that money can just boil down to just things that we found inside walls that we took care of while we were there. That pretty much wraps up my update for phase one. It's a big picture, kind of in the right around spring break is when we hopes to have all of the remaining work for phase one wrapped up. That's not weather dependent, obviously. Some of the stuff that will wait till later in the year or even till next summer.
Great. Any questions? Brendan?
Thank you for that update. Just a few questions. So I just want to understand a bit more, and I think you might be alluding to some of the causes for, particularly the delays for the bathrooms. You mentioned the asbestos abatement. Just to review, when you presented in August, there were 2 dates supplied, September 1st and September 9th, for when the bathrooms would be ready. And I'd say roughly it ended up being about 3 weeks behind schedule. So before I jump to any conclusions on that, I just want to assume or understand what went into the delays. It seems that you mentioned the asbestos abatement. Was that the sole cause? Just fill in that gap for me so I can understand why it ended up taking as long as it did.
So there were a lot of reasons, right, that went into how we got from September 1st to September 9th, and I think like finally when all the bathrooms were turned over, I think it was September 25th or that weekend. A lot of it was manpower, summer resources, material availability. I mean, we didn't get tile on site till late August, right around. The focus when we were throwing around the September 9th date was to complete Willow Avenue, which was kind of an all or nothing type building because of the amount of bathrooms in that building and the code compliance and students and faculties against, faucet fixtures and toilets and urinals and things of that nature. Ultimately, that building took longer to finish to make sure we were in that position, and because it was a priority, we pretty much put every resource that we had into getting that building operational for the first day of school, and that held back particularly the D and the E wing, which is at the middle school.
Mm-hmm. So, and those, I do recall at that mid-August meeting, one of our board members did bring up the possibility that this seemed like it was a manpower issue. So was that did you know that at the time did you know the scope of that problem at the time, that it was going to be that hard to source?
So what we ended up doing is at several iterations throughout the summer, we would kind of schedule out the remaining work and, how do we make our goal, right? And then you do it again and then revise as issues would pop up, whether it be material coordination, and you get to a point where those dates weren't feasible, maintaining some priorities that we knew that we needed to meet.
Got it. I would just make one observation, and maybe we can apply this moving forward. So I think that I appreciate aspirational dates. You have to have something to strive for, and they should be ambitious because it just keeps everybody moving. But on the other side, then when we communicate those out to the community and then those aren't hit, and we don't have some of the granular information as to why, right? We're just kind of left holding the messaging bag, so to speak, and we have a position that we can't really defend. So I would ask in the future to have more of that nuance when you're presenting dates, so we know, okay, is this aspirational? If we don't hit it, here are the reasons why, we might not. Just so that we don't take like the presentation in August and then, assure the community and say, no, it's going to be done by September 9th. And then essentially we end up being the ones who are, either misleading or viewed as misleading. Not to say that you were misleading us, but that's how then the community looks at us, and it just puts us in a more difficult position. So I understand certainly things always come up. But yeah, if there can just be a little bit more of that nuance when giving us dates, think we'll be in a better position to defend that. I guess the only other question now that, while I have the mic, so it does seem like a fair amount is being pushed either to the spring, really to the spring. You said to March 2024 completion.
Yeah, you think spring break. The end of March is a really good milestone to have in the back of your head for a lot of these completions.
Yep. Is that more than you anticipated being pushed, or is that within kind of the buffer that you anticipated? Because I'm just concerned that if it is more, and we run into the same issues that you just described, this could start affecting the timelines for phase 2.
So some of the stuff I would say, yeah, maybe a little bit longer than expected. For a good example of that would be things that were weathered out or outside of our control, like things affecting Central Hudson, right? We had no idea that they were going to go ahead and have a bunch of different criterias and design changes, and along with the school and the architect, we kind of re-schemed that. And by the time we got that ball with enough momentum, right, I think it's in everyone's best interest, to wait. You take a look at the doors and the hardware, that type of schedule. With the spring schedule that we bid, we didn't anticipate getting doors until, August or September, depending on what type, hollow metal, aluminum storefronts, FRP. So that's not surprising at all. Neither is the handrail when you're dealing with, particularly at Willow Avenue and in almost all the stairwells, you need to make sure that that's right and thorough and detailed. Then there's no reason that you would want to run at that, let's say, at the end of August, right, when that could easily be, Saturday, type work. Some of the bathrooms, a little bit of a disappointment. We didn't meet the dates that that we shot for. I think that was really the major scope, and then the brickwork. Mm-hmm. Some of that is dependent on some of the mechanical units, right, and knowing that we can't take them out of service, while the building's occupied. That was a collective decision to wait.
Yep. And I did have one other question. This might be more for internal and maybe even Harvey. So the $100,000 that we were over the projected on the bathrooms, just want to understand what that projection was, because I know we baked in, I forget the percentage, but there was a certain percentage baked in that would cover these kind of incidentals. Is that $100,000 still within that?
No, that's over and above that.
Okay.
And in terms of where your probably next question is going is, how do we afford that? How do we pay for that? You have to keep in mind that the lion's share of the project is actually phase 2, and we're confident that there's enough built into that to absorb that.
And when will we know that there's not? Would that come back during the bidding process? So we're not
Correct.
going to be midway through a project and say we can't complete
No,
something. We'd have to
won't be
come
there.
back to make a decision.
And if the bids came in at such a level that we could not afford that 100,000, say for instance, we would have to make a decision as to what to cut back on a little bit at this point in time.
Got it. Okay.
And that'll be some of the bidding strategies that we do with the facilities committee. Is okay. Here are the must-haves, right? The priorities, right? And then there are bidding strategies, alternates, right? That we can just kind of create a menu for, right? So that way, when the numbers do come in and we can analyze what do we want versus what can we afford, right? We don't have to go out to bid. It puts us in a better awarding strategy without losing time or momentum.
Yeah. And is there any, I apologize for continually adding one more question. Is there anything we can learn from the discovery of asbestos? Was it asbestos generally across the district, or was it particularly in one building? Where I'm going with this is...
It was mostly this building.
It was this building,
It was
okay.
mostly this building.
Where I'm going is if it's in one place in the building, can we assume it's elsewhere and therefore predict it'll be an issue elsewhere? I don't know how actionable that insight would even be, but just a thought.
I think when we got into the changes were, did not anticipate entering certain, like in the classrooms, we didn't anticipate entering into the classroom walls, right? And when we needed certain sink configurations to be, changed, and we had to enter the wall, right, which was never part of the scope, right? That's when we started seeing some of that. So scope creep, which I do support, that we did, because at the end of the day, the school has a better functioning, maintainable building than when we started. So, and that's not a decision like, oh, we found it, let's not do it or not do it. It's a decision that we make, together to make sure it benefits the, the schedule, the cost, or the timing.
Got it. Yep.
Brendan,
Thank you.
I don't want to speak for the Palumbo Group, but where you get into a nuance there as well is the bidding process. How do you bid for the question mark? Then we're incumbent on saying, this is what then we say, here's the question mark, we define it, and then your various bidders put dollar values to it. That's not, you don't know what's back there, you know? So you got to make it fair for the bidding process as well.
And that's where some of the allowance comes in, is we know that it might be there, so let's carry some contingency or some allowance to pay for that, right? And that way it levels that playing field, and then when you just find more, especially some of these older buildings.
So are you good, Brendan? Yeah. Can we, thank you. Just to piggyback on the comment I just heard about allowances, just could you clarify the 140,000 overage or 100,000 plus overage? Is that accounting for the contingency that was already factored in? So we've blown through the budget and the contingency as well?
No.
When you look at the $5 million worth of work that was allocated, 5.4 that was allocated on industry standard is 10% that you hold for construction contingency, which would be 540,000. We didn't do that. We held 5%. Within the contracts themselves, so when you looked at the 4.2 million, there's $204,000 that's built into the contract as contract allowances. Outside of that, so when you look at that 4.2 million, take 5%, there's another 200,000 that would have been outside of that allowance. So we're looking at 100,000. We're below industry standard.
Thank you for clarifying that,
Yeah,
right? Because
very
it's a
clear.
big difference,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, big
Thank
difference.
you.
Yes.
Thank you for that. Any other questions for the Palumbo Group? In this, what's been presented so far?
May I?
Yeah, thank you, Christine.
So thank you. Very informative. I just would like to point out, piggybacking on Brendan a bit, I'm concerned when I see the word demolition over Christmas break. That's 1 week, and you have it happening in 3 different schools. So I'm stating the obvious, but just please, let's make sure, or it's our due diligence to see a project plan that ensures we have the right number of people, the right hours allocated, because you can't open without doors. That's a safety issue.
No, so we are at the part of the job of the school being open, right? Being dental isn't really the right adjective to use, right? It's the right timing, it's the right cleanliness, it's the right protection, it's the right people, all that goes into effect. And that's what contractors typically fear when they kind of bleed into, you know, school opening and they're into second shift during the nights, because they do slow down, and they slow down for the benefit. Mm-hmm. You know, when I say that, you know, the district being an operational unit, you guys are here to educate and run a school, right? Not to be a construction area.
Right, so demolition over a week in 3 buildings. I just want to make sure that we're really covered there. And if I may, my second question. So the cost of the porta potties, or the fancy porta potties, to allow for bathroom usage, where does that get funded from? Is that in that contingency? Is that in the $5 million?
It's not from the school.
Okay.
So that, all of those costs are not associated with the budget.
Okay, great, thank you.
Good questions, Christine. Thank you for that. Any other?
So,
Lou.
I'll jump in as well. Yes, that, all second shift and overtime, the premium for that work is also on the contractor, not on the district. And then a note about the Palumbo, or Scott mentioned earlier about the casework. So it's about mismeasurements, not correct. They're going to replace and put it back in. That's also on the manufacturer. That's not a district, well, I say the district responsibility, right? It's in our schools, but there's no added cost for us. They were measured incorrectly, fabricated and built, like your kitchens are built elsewhere, and the guy comes and puts them in. They were, the wrong size. They weren't the exact size, but we put them in, so everybody had cubbies on day one. And then when the remanufactured versions are going to be completed, again, off hours, they'll be removed, put back in over the weekend, the night, the day, so off hours.
I think that's a really powerful story, because in the absence of information, what I see on Facebook is people filling in the blanks with misinformation. So I know we have a communication committee meeting coming up, but that's the story that I think people need to know, right? People see that things that aren't right, and they're assuming that the district is carrying the burden for that financially. Right. So when you tell me we're not, I'm kind of like, oh, okay.
I think the most important thing contractually that the district has is we are allowing the contractors to work past substantial completion, right? They can't charge you anymore. So that 4.3 million that we showed up there, that's their contract to date with true change orders that we've actually talked about. We can give them an extension of time. They cannot charge. They cannot come back and say premium time. We have to come back to replace casework. We have to come back for A, B, C, and D. We're pushing into 2024. Labor rates go on. They missed the boat. So what we are giving them is an extension of time, which is allowed in contract, but not the bump in numbers for that. And that's in their
great.
contract. It's very important that,
Yeah.
And I'm glad you brought it up. Yeah.
Lou, thank you for clarifying that. It was important. Christian, you're up.
I also want to piggyback on what Brendan said about aspirational deadlines, because I think that some of these deadlines, when you talked to us on August 14th, you basically said we were 3 weeks out, at least for September 1st for Willow Avenue and September 9th for the other buildings. And that's, I would guess at that point, you should that should be a relatively close to it. You might go over a day or two, but we went over 3-4 weeks on what we knew 3 weeks before the original deadline or the original revised deadline. And my wife is a professor, teaches construction management, and she would say, like, at that point, you should kind of be pretty close, whether the asbestos, I'm presuming you knew at August 14th that that was an issue, or the extent of that issue, and labor issues and whatever materials issues would have been known when we were given that date. And I guess the one for me is that we only found, at least the board was only informed about Willow Avenue, which we were told on September 1st, on roughly around noon on Labor Day. And that seemed like the day before schools were open. That's kind of like, at that point, there's not much that can be done. So what I think would be helpful, both from the communication standpoint, if there is something like a Gantt chart or a critical path diagram, so we can understand how time is allocated and what tasks are going to be done. Because when I look at this and how many things are pushed, it just seems like an overly ambitious, set of things to get done. And particularly things that probably have to get done before school opens. And I don't think this is on the Palumbo group. I just think that if I can see a Gantt chart or some type of informational diagram I'm sure you have one, because I think it's pretty standard in my understanding in the construction industry, that if that was something that people could see, they would understand, and then understand where delays come in. And I think people would be more understanding, not just to us, and frankly, I think we should be criticized because it's part of our job to make sure things happen. But I think it would make people understand, and rather than, in a sense, speculate on cabinets, bathrooms, and things of that sort. So if you have that, I think that would be something useful for us to give to the community as we do other projects, including some of these ones that we are doing over the course of the year. I think this would build confidence in that we are going to actually more or less meet this deadline with, let's say, allowance of maybe 1 or 2 days. So that would be something that I would ask for, and perhaps you have that, and perhaps we've already been given that, but I think that would be helpful. And I just want to say something about deadlines as a teacher. If I turned in my grades that far after they were due, I don't think anyone would be understanding. And so the way that I approach my deadlines, and I have many, is I work back from that date to whatever I have to hit, so that I kind of know if I'm going to be even a little bit late, and I budget in a balance, and I realize it's not construction, not the same thing. So if we could have that, I think that would be helpful to us, to the community, in making decisions, because when we go into the next phase, that will help. I'm sure there's going to be other things that happen, right? There are things, there's still question marks going ahead on projects we haven't started yet. And I think if we could learn from this, that would really improve the process. And I think it would save you from coming back maybe a second night, because we would have something that we could work off. Thank you.
Thank you.
Christian, thanks for those comments and questions. Anyone else? Scott, I just have a couple things. The first is, you mentioned the concrete slab. Is that going to cure the water problem over at Willow by the electrical box? Is that going to act as a water leakage mitigant?
So we have, well, we'll start with one. One, we found, while we were doing some excavation there, we found actually a broken clogged drain line underneath that footing slab, which we repaired as we kind of built our way out of the ground. Right, so that was definitely positive. Two, a lot of the work that we're doing are grade level, so we're grabbing gutters, we're grabbing leaders, and we're grading the area around the loading dock, pretty much from that storage shed to where the bus entrance is. So I don't want to say all of it, but the areas that we're touching, we're certainly putting it in a sense where it's going to be better than it was. But
So
that's more surface water.
That's on the outside. I was talking specific to the inside. I don't know if you know, there's an electrical panel that, there's a room that's always receiving water. That's right above, I think, the loading dock. And I would assume that that would be part of the design to cure that problem.
So we've got a couple of foundations that we've excavated within the basement of Willow. We are controlling the groundwater, and I think one end result will be adding a new permanent sump pump in that area, which would bring that building up to 2 locations, which will certainly help. We've been able to maintain that water level while we've been in there, but we're certainly not actively going in there to mitigate some of the water flows underneath those slabs.
Okay, thank you for that.
Isn't that what you were talking about at the facilities meeting? We were talking about a French drain around that area? Is that what you were just discussing now? Putting a French drain out there, keeping everything away from the loading dock and the gymnasium floor?
But that's outside.
Outside.
That was outside. We're doing a lot of
So,
surface water
are
collection.
you done, John?
I wasn't, Carl, but.
Okay, I just was trying to
I was
tap
trying to
on that
wrap
real
this all
quick.
up so we can get
I'm
on to
not
phase
looking
2,
at you.
but do you have anything that you'd like to add? But I'm trying to wrap it up, since I thought I gave everybody enough time to talk and ask their
yeah,
questions. Do
okay.
you have anything?
Yeah, it's just.
Yeah, go ahead.
What are we going to do? What are we doing differently here for phase 2, being that there was a material issue this time around? What's the plan of doing are we going to do anything different? Are we going to do early bidding, anything so that you can start getting the
Hey, Carl?
materials ahead of time?
Carl, I think phase
I have
2
a
is going to
slide.
follow.
Well, this has to do with phase 1.
Oh, okay,
right?
go ahead.
It's the same thing, right? We had a problem in phase 1, so now we're moving on to phase 2. I'm just talking about what are we going to do differently? That's, okay, different slide. Well,
Hey, Carl, no, thank you. I think lessons learned and what's going to change as we proceed on this capital project is important. And I think everyone shares that concern. So thank you for actually raising it in the forum here tonight. But we'll get there in a second. The last question I have, and this is kind of bigger picture, sitting back, the Facilities Committee has done a great job, I think, over the last couple of years for the board and the district in particular in planning and prioritizing the things that need to get done. Where I think there may have been a gap, and I'm asking you all as basically our manager of this construction effort, is what about the construction updates? It seems to me that the Facilities Committee has a specific purpose, and that is priority and planning, not necessarily the follow-up or oversight of ongoing construction projects. So I think there's a gap, and I heard Christian make a request for Henry Gant's great contribution to the 20th century with his Gantt chart for project management and all, which seems like something that all construction managers actually rely on. Whether it rises to the level of the board purview as something that we want to oversee or not, I'm not sure that's appropriate for our level. More appropriate, I think, for Terry and his staff to include. I see Walter in the audience tonight. And I know Walter has lots of Gantt charts because he showed them to me. So I guess getting back to the issue is, do you feel comfortable in the discourse that you currently have with the district office in providing updates and getting feedback in terms of ongoing construction updates.
So is your question communication back and forth between the administration? And I think it's very fluid. I certainly feel that we can do a little bit more presentations, both forward and backwards at facilities meetings, right? And we can carve out a little bit of time at every meeting to, where we are, where we headed, where have we been.
So getting back to the facilities committee, I think they do a great job for planning and priority and coming to the board with recommendations. I don't know, and I've talked to Louis about it, and I don't think we've conferred as a full board yet about it, but I just throw it out there as what is the right group to basically have the Palumbo group provide construction updates to? I would prefer it come from the district, from Terry and his staff to the board, and to the degree that he needs your support, that you would be, like you are tonight, coming in and providing those construction updates, as opposed to the facilities committee, which is focused on, I think, and I could be wrong, but I see one of the past chairs and past presidents of the sport here tonight, who I welcome his correction if necessary, that they get the planning and the priority of the projects, not the construction of the projects. So I just throw that out there. I don't know if we're going to solve that tonight, but from my perspective, that's where a gap was. And if that, as you called it, somewhat fluid, was more procedural and more routine, maybe some of this stuff that eventually came to light would have been identified earlier in the process. I just throw that out as a possibility. Terry, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think the appropriate place is with Walter and his team in direct conversation with Palumbo Group. Walter gives me and Harvey kind of an overview of where we are, where we stand, what's the status, how it might impact operations. I do want to just kind of manage everyone's expectations a bit, just to hone in on the fact that the time frame that we're talking about was from the very end of June until the start of school. So it was a very small window when we're not meeting as regularly as the board. So it was a very different time. And I tell my team, don't freak out until I freak out. Bathrooms were causing me to freak out because bathrooms cause an interruption to operation. All this other stuff is a conversation to say, when are we going to demo? What is the time frame that's going to be spent on this? And what is the impact to operations? So when we're talking about weekends, night work, breaks, all of that does not give me heartburn. Bathroom, when we bring COH online, it will be the same kind of heartburn for me of, if we do not get the COH bathrooms done by X date, we are in trouble. So I just want to let you know, from opening a new elementary school, there's those windows of time that you know that you have to rock and roll on day one, and our day one was August 28th, when we wanted to really have everything done for staff and things of that nature. So that was kind of the time period that, notice how everyone's just talking about bathrooms at this point, not the loading dock, not X, Y, or Z. The cabinetry we did make everyone aware of in August. So I think the bathrooms were the key. I spoke with a parent to say most parents are not interested in that level of detail. So, how do we make sure that we're providing the board with appropriate updates, bring our Palumbo group back periodically as we're hitting key dates? But I'm not sure that the community would want to hear, nor do I want them to turn off messaging when it's about handrails, window frames, and things of that nature. So I feel like it's in a good spot right now. And then working with communications, John and Jim had a great recommendation that, having a repository of information on the website, so those that are interested in that level of detail can go to one spot, like we did when we were putting the capital project up for bid that is missing that we need to bring online.
Thank you, Terry, for that. So let that be the segue to the next part of the presentation, Scott. Thank you.
So same format over to phase two, kind of give an overview, building by building, location by location of what it is that we're planned. Cornwall Elementary School, we have 2 other bathrooms to do, which were alternates as part of the phase one. They were not awarded for bidding reasons. So we're going to go ahead and do those 2 bathrooms over here by the gymnasium next summer. We also have all of the kindergarten wing and the lower first and second floor. We're doing all ceilings and new light fixtures and controls. And then we're replacing pretty much from the crosswalk over by the stop sign and all of the bus loop, parent drop-off loop, and the parking, this whole corridor up here, we're completely replacing. Scopes work at the middle school. We have renovation of the boys and girls locker room and the creation of additional classroom. We are also going to be renovating 6 small singular stall bathrooms. We're renovating the rear entrance to the building. It's currently where the cooler is, where the walk-in freezer, kind of that corridor. And then in addition to that, that whole, we'll call it parking lot for the athletic field, all that asphalt area, the lower level, the upper level, that's all being redone as well. So a lot of site work, a lot of finishes, and a brand-new boys and girls locker room renovation. A couple things to pay attention to. Lead times, we talk about things that we're so we'll get into where this is currently with LED, but as we're talking, or SCD, but as we're talking about, bidding and procurement, one thing that's going to be different this time than it was, we have a little bit more time. We should be bidding a couple months earlier than we were in phase one, which gives the contractors more time to procure light fixtures and unit ventilators and rooftop units. That's not to say that they're going to be ready at a moment's notice. These are some of the longer lead items that we're seeing in the industry. As an example of some diagrams of the areas of work. The gray here is Cornwall Elementary School, and then the lower left, or the lower right, the blue, is the rear of the middle school. Cornwall on the Hudson, which is, phase one, but for operational summer camps type coordination that was moved on till the summer of 2024. We've got first, second, and third floor bathrooms being renovated. There's 5 in total. Full building window replacements and some masonry restorations in the front of the building. And then finally over at the high school, within the building, we are renovating the lobby, which includes new for cooling, ceilings, grids, lights, ductwork. A complex, which is installing a drainage system under the baseball field, upgrade natural field to athletic turf, bleachers, press box, new stadium lighting, and athletic track surface. We're doing a lot of adjustments to the parking, tennis courts, and retaining walls to facilitate all the grade changes that we're doing along the complex. A little bit of an idea of a finished kind of schematic as to the area that we'll be working in. At the lower right-hand corner, all 6 tennis courts. We're not showing some of the walkway work and some drainage work that we're doing over in some of the ball fields. And the additional parking and space for future concession. So where we are with approvals. So we submitted up to SCD. What they do is they pretty much status their SCD approval process. So currently they are on, I think it was like 200 reviews prior to us. They were currently the end of June, and our submission was the end of July. So to give you an idea, we submitted at the end of July. They still haven't picked up our drawings yet. But once they do, kind of creates a priority. They go ahead and they do their architectural review. They do their design review. We go through a series of commenting periods for the architect. We are hoping to have those approvals by mid to late December. And then the architect and ourselves will go ahead and create those bid packages. Through the month of January, we'll be out to bid. And hopefully in one of the board meetings in February, if everything all shakes out, we are here recommending award. Our athletic complex duration will be from April 24 through April of 25. And then obviously COH, the middle school and the high school, will be another summer construction with follow-along. We talk about some of the mechanical units, right, that could be anywhere up to, an 8 to 10 month lead time, just kind of finalizing that in the quarter one, quarter two of 2025. So we talk about some of our lessons learned or some of the things that we want to do differently. So some of the things that aren't going to change, right, are summer obstacles, right, in 2024 because of extended school periods going into June, locations of where 4th of July ends. We're actually going to have a shorter summer next year in the construction world than we did this year. So keeping that in mind, we're going to adjust how we go ahead and we bid some work. We're still seeing manpower and material issues throughout the industry and in the Hudson Valley. So we just need to be cognizant of that on when we decide what to let out, what to bid, right? We're cognizant of that workload because it's not just this district, it's districts all around the Hudson Valley. And then coordinate with the camp locations. One of the reasons why we didn't do COH last year is because of the utilization of summer camps, town camps, things of that nature. So this year, Willow Avenue will be that summer for camps and COH will be that summer for construction. One of the main differences is we were bidding in March and April of this year for summer work, for June work. This year, we're bidding in October and November for June work. So one of the things that's going to be major differences. There's a lot of things that we also uncovered through this build cycle, colors of tile, finishes and fixtures, things of that nature, all that's been vetted out, and with the district wanting to unify some of their materials used, right? All those decisions have been made. Now we can just go ahead and apply them to our next drawing. So it's a less durational approval process because we've already done it. No sense of inventing the wheel there. So a couple of contractual things that we're looking at, liquidated damages, potentially for summer work. We do need to talk to legal counsel about that. Phase one had mandatory Saturdays. We're looking into the idea and what the schedule implications and the cost value would be for mandatory second shift to make sure that we are utilizing the full 7 weeks because we're obviously we need to make up those 3 weeks from the get-go. And really understanding the contractors that bid our work, right, what other commitments they have. We do feel that there is a potential for contractors to overexert themselves, right? And when you bid work in September, it's your first job of the summer. But when you bid work in March and April, it could be your 4th or 5th job in the summer, right? It's really analyzing what is the workload for those contractors because they've got resources that are limited. And then when you start to extrapolate that with material and manpower, how does that all play into effect for our team to be successful?
So what was approved by the voters was a project that went out to fall, winter of 2025. So this is really talking to 2024, and I think the point has been made. Let's not be too aggressive. Let's make sure we can take on the right amount of work, 2024. Let's see what we can do through the school year, 2024-25, and then summer of 2025, let's finish strong. Let's not try to, shortchange ourselves. We have 2 summers, not 1 summer, 2 summers of work, and let's plan the work properly. We're going to come back to the facilities with our plan of how we're dissecting this thing because we do want buy-in. To your point, how are we talking? Let's work through this as a team. Come back to the facility, say, listen, this is how we want to dissect this, the rest of the work. Is everyone in agreement in how we're going to move through the building, move through the sites? A good example is Lee Road and the middle school, right? So you Lee Road, middle school here, all that site work. Do we actually try to take that on in 2024? We're going to have a bunch of work going on in this building. We have ceilings, lighting, we have electrical work. Maybe that's all we do. And that final look is 2025 is the site work. Same thing at the middle school. We have still bathrooms. We don't want contractors running over brand new asphalt work. So it may be that we look at 2025. And again, that's just thinking outside the box. How do we do that? The site work here at this building alone with the drive coming in is a significant project. It really is. for one contractor, this is a big project. So we want to make sure we succeed. We don't want that contractor that's doing work here to be anyone doing work in the building, right? So if we have contractors in the building and he's trying to do site work, how do we do that? That's the discussion, and we want to hit our numbers. So, I mean, all the points that Scott brought up are really important, but and the other thing too with the site work, we are going to dissect that job. We're going to take and do a lot of state contract work with the site, the athletic field project. We have the bleachers, we have the synthetics field, we have the rubber track, we have the scoreboard, we have the athletic field lighting. There's close to $2 million worth of work that we can control. And think of that as subcontractor work. When we were doing bathrooms, we couldn't control anybody. We couldn't control this tile guy. We couldn't control partitions. We couldn't control anything happening because that's under the GC. We're going to have that control because we're going to separate that scope of work. And that's pretty important. And just back to the tile side, just one other thing. Right in the tile that was chosen for this project in the bathrooms, if we had selected it, we'd still be waiting for it. It'd be coming in at middle of November. That's what the lead time was for the tile for the bathroom. Last minute, Audible, these guys, Harvey, Walt, architects, we're trying to figure out a nice mosaic, something that can work, but still get the tile here on time. Think about the tile that was specified in contract documents wouldn't come in until end of November. And now, we switch up. We got the tile, but it was late. So those are the kind of things we had to negotiate on phase one to get completed. And because we are bidding the bathrooms much earlier now, we can get ahead. We're not having the materials, so. It's horrible.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Lou. I think you touched on the importance of synchronization, and between the construction firm, the architects, and you all, and well as the district, having that communication is vital to what everyone I know is motivated towards is a successful completion of these projects, right? It's in everyone's interest for these projects to be successfully done, and I know people are working hard to make it so, but I think we've learned a lot of lessons this first time out that hopefully during the winter break and then following the summer of '24, these lessons that we've just kind of learned can be applied, and we hit the dates that, as Brendan mentioned, are aspirational, but they're also contractual at the end of the day, right? And so I thank you for that. Scott, you have anything you want to add? I see you with the mic in hand.
No, just open it up for phase two, status questions, scope questions.
Any questions? Richard?
Thank you. I didn't know where to ask this question, so I waited till the end. Make sure it wasn't obvious and right on the paper. So if there's staff in the building during the school day, right? I can assume at some point they go into the building when students are in school, correct?
Not during the
No?
day. Nope, it's coordinated, second shift. We have a whole Raptor screen-in safety process. 2-week look ahead, working with the district. Where can we be? When can we be? What are we doing? How many people are there? Supervision, right? So we're on staff, making sure that we're where we said we would be, doing what we said we would do, and then cleaning on our way out, right? So we're the last ones, making sure that we're working with the schools team, custodials, making sure that it's as if we were never there. Obviously, less what we were trying to accomplish.
Right, okay. Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're following all those protocols, because that's something that I think has been brought up in the community, and just want to put those, those concerns to rest. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Richard. Anyone else? Brendan?
Thank you, John. Just want to, Lou, I really want to underscore what you said. I'm glad you said it, because I don't want, certainly, my own comments to be misconstrued. I think you're interpreting them properly, which is, I think the quality of the work is much more important than hitting particular deadlines, right? I think the bathrooms, to Terry's point, were so critical because they so directly impact operations of the schools. But we don't want to be in a position in 15 years or so where people are looking at crumbling work and we say, yeah, but it was done on time, like that's not going to help us. So I appreciate you highlighting that really as the North Star. Just about a question really about the high school athletic complex. So it seems like it's going to be an enormous footprint of a project. So my two questions: will we know when we start that we'll be able to finish over the summer? Is there a chance that September may come around and it's not complete, and because it's such a large footprint, we could not continue that work? Because I'm just imagining it might limit access to the entire campus, for instance, or at least that part of it, or that entryway. So I get to break it into two very simple questions. Will we know that we can complete it over that one summer? And if we don't, what's the plan? Oh, it's going to be going on throughout the year? Okay.
So when we bid in an award in February, we will break ground when we have submittal supplies, really when the be very much into the spring of the following year, 2025.
Got it. So I assume then the next question, it's not going to restrict flow to the building itself?
No, we in part of our logistics and operations plan will be, what does this look like, April, May, and June? What does it look like July and August? And then again, what does it look like when school is open, right? Given that, tennis courts being a summer priority, we wouldn't touch it beforehand and then attack it there. The athletic fields, drainage systems, there's also a sequence to that. You kind of build from the ground up. You got to give the water a place to run. Long lead times, scoreboard, turf, athletic coating, right? Not too bad. Press box and bleachers, that can vary. Sure.
Got it. Okay. Makes sense. Thank you.
Great. Kate?
So I just have like one or two questions. So let me maybe move it this way. So there's been a concern with students, from a student perspective. There's been a lot of confusion of students saying, oh, well, is my parking going to get taken away? Because teachers are going to have to move to my parking. And then where am I going to practice after school? So I was just hoping for clarity on that so I can relay it to my peers.
So a lot of is the circulation in front of the tennis courts. We expand sidewalks, more of an entrance from the pathway from the building to athletic field. We're actually adding some parking along the main entranceway. For athletic events, we added specialty parking and AD access right over there, but all in general, we're adding a little bit of spacing, right? So I can't really tell to who was parking where, but we are giving you more spots than we're starting with. Your next question was sports and athletics. We're going to have to coordinate that with the athletic department. There'll be parts of the season that is not accessible until we're done, right? For instance, the track coating. Track coating is very weather dependent. If we don't get that in October, that'll be pushed out toward the following year. And then collectively, we need to make a decision, do we want to play lacrosse and your spring sports? Or do we want to hold off and finish the track for June events? So that's very much a group decision as to where we're tracking, at that point for next year's summer schedule.
Great question, Kate. Thanks for asking it. Anyone else? Jim?
Thank you. So I'm going to not ask a question, actually. I'm just going to make a few points.
Well, then, no, I'm just joking.
So I've been kind of taking in everybody's questions, and I'm not going to ask a question because I got to pepper these two guys in the facilities committee last week. So I got to ask my questions. But what I really kind of thought tied it together, and Brendan said this a minute ago, but I'm going to just say it differently. There's the old saying, you can get it done cheaply, quickly, or done right. Pick two of the three, right? So I'm confident with the cost here that we're getting it done right. We went a little bit over, but that was asbestos abatement, which is very expensive. And the fact that we actually did it while we're in there is going to save money in the long run. And based on some of the updates we got last week, I'm confident we're actually going to make that money up next summer on some of the projects. So I think we're good cost-wise. And quality, I think you guys didn't really go in depth in that today as much as we did in the committee last week. But really important to note that they had items here sort of marked punch list, but they also had deficiencies. So they're not accepting if any subpar work has been done. So first off, punch list, you know, hey, you put a hole in that wall, you got to fix it and spackle it and paint it, right? You didn't caulk this properly, that's got to be done. But you gave the example of some of the stuff in Willow where the partition stalls in the bathrooms weren't right. They put them in temporarily, so they're usable, but they're going to be replaced with the right material. So, so ultimately, you know, I really agree with Terry's point of the bathrooms are what obviously gave us all heartburn. And next summer, it's COH is going to be the big area. That's going to give us heartburn, potentially, time-wise. That's really the big one. Nobody's going to, hey, you were 2 weeks late replacing ceiling tiles in the kindergarten classroom here. Like, that doesn't necessarily matter. It's the bathrooms that are the big important thing. So, you know, I think it's important to recognize that we're making improvements here that are going to last for 50 years. And being 3 weeks overdue is not ideal, but you know, we're doing it on budget and we're doing it with the right quality. So I think that's really important. And I think that's all. And I guess just I wanted to, your second to last slide where you had 1 through 8 for your phase 2, really 5, 6, 7, and 8 were all different lessons learned and ways looking forward to mitigate next summer with the COH bathrooms of how do we get that done on time. So it's good to know that we learned some things from this summer. Good to hear about the materials. Hey, the tile's spec'd, all this stuff is already spec'd. So we can maybe hit the ground running next summer and get those bathrooms completed. So thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Anyone else? Fantastic. As Jim said, you know, getting it right is what this is all about, and I appreciate everyone's hard work. I know there's lots of things that go into this, and as someone who's built a house, I could tell you, you know, delays happen. There's a saying, time passes, weather changes, and stuff happens. Obviously, a lot of stuff has happened as it pertains to this first round. Hopefully these lessons that have emerged will be applied so that they don't repeat in subsequent rounds. And I just want to thank Scott and Lou for coming out tonight, providing us their fact-finding mission and status update. So thank you, guys. All right. Wonderful. So let's move on then with the rest of the agenda. Next up are reports, and let's turn to Kate and Nick with our student representative reports.
All right, Cornwall Elementary School, good news. October has been a great month so far for Cornwall Elementary School. We're enjoying the beautiful fall weather and taking as many opportunities as we can to spend time outside. At the end of September, we held our first spirit assemblies of the new school year. During this time, we had a presentation about respect, the character tree trait for October, and we celebrated our Friendship Principles Award winners. We thank our Spirit Assembly Committee for putting together these events for the students and are looking forward to many more. Our librarian, Miss Chrissy, read The Dot by Peter H. Reynolds to our students. Peter H. Reynolds is a wonderful author whose mission is to tell stories that matter and challenge us to read to reach our fullest potential. His stories and illustrations inspire students to dream big and spread kindness. After finishing the book, the students celebrated Dot Day and created a beautiful mural throughout our hallway, which we've been able to enjoy every day as we walk to class. Our first grade classes took a trip to Du Bois Farms in Highland, New York. The students spent the day picking locally grown apples and enjoying the perfect weather. Our third grade classes went on a field trip to Museum Village, where they learned all about the late 19th century through small-town America. They got to walk through interpreted buildings and see the different tools that were used during this time, such as oil lamps, homemade candles, weavers, and a printing press. On October 12th, we held our second annual First Responders Day, made possible by our amazing PTO. Service providers throughout our community, such as firemen, police, and EMTs, volunteered their time to teach our students about the work they do. Each student had the opportunity to travel through a smokehouse, sit in the back of a squad car, and watch a police drone in action. The turnout for the event was incredible, and our students and staff had a wonderful time. We can't wait to see what next year's event has in store. We are now looking forward to the 4th grade Halloween happenings and seeing our students in their costumes for the Halloween parade. All right. Willow Ave, good news for 1016. Willow Avenue celebrated our first Spirit Day. Go green and show your dragon pride. The halls and classrooms were filled with Cornwall green. Our monthly character trait for October is respect. Students are showing examples of respect in and out of the classrooms at Willow. Our classes have been working with Ms. Correa in our STEAM lab to conduct and investigate fall and Halloween activities using their technology skills. Students in kindergarten travel to Soane's orchards to learn about and count with apples. Our 3rd graders have been raising monarch caterpillars that were brought in from fields by their teachers and have released over 40 monarch butterflies from our Monarch Way station. They are on their way to Mexico. The 3rd graders also had their first of 4 trips to Black Rock Forest. During their first trip, they participated in Black Rock's annual fall acorn study and reported the data collected to the staff of Black Rock. The students love having their own Chromebooks and are learning to use them to enhance their learning. They have used Lumio, Nearpod Reflex, Braining Camp, and Learning A to Z to name a few of the interactive programs. They are also learning the apps in Google Suite. On October 5th, our 4th graders took a field trip to the Hudson River to participate in a statewide scientific study of the river. They learned that at mile 57, Donahue Park, Cornwall on the Hudson of the river is quite clean, that a river is constantly changing because it is known as, quote, the river that flows both ways. Both classes had fun performing many hands-on scientific activities, which included checking the pH, working with our turbidity tube, charting the tides, and observing weather conditions and water temperatures. This year was the 21st annual Day in the Life of the River/Harbor and the 16th year that Willow Avenue has partnered with them for this experience. We are looking forward to our Red Ribbon Spirit Week starting October 23rd.
Good news from COH. During the first week of October, the PTO hosted their first Scholastic Book Fair of the year. It was a huge success, in part because of the annual Grandparents' Dessert, which was held on October 4th. Students had the wonderful opportunity to showcase their school and their classrooms to their grandparents or special guests, and then visit the book fair. On October 12th and 13th, students from COH had the opportunity to visit Storm King Engine Company No. 2 to celebrate Fire Prevention Week. The children learned about fire safety and had a chance to climb into the fire trucks. Picture Day is on Wednesday, October 18th. Students are encouraged to dress to impress. On October 20th, the staff and students at COH will observe Unity Day, which is on October 18th. This day promotes kindness, acceptance, and inclusion. Students should wear orange to show unity and to send a message that no child should ever experience bullying. On October 20th, the PTO will host their annual Spooktacular. COH will be filled with many ghosts and goblins. During the week of October 23rd to 27th, students will participate in different theme days in honor of Red Ribbon Week. Students will learn ways to live a healthy lifestyle. The staff and students are preparing for the annual Halloween parade on Monday, October 31st. All are invited. CCMS Good News in October. The CCMS joined the high school in celebrating Spirit Week last week. Students participated in Color Wars, dressed like a superhero, sported their best Crocs, socks, and Birkenstocks, and finished the week strong, wearing their Cornwall Dragon gear. Students in Mrs. Meyer's 6th grade art class had a visit from local artist Rob Moriner. Rob, a New Windsor resident, has had his art showcased all over the country as well as locally. During his visit, he spoke about his art and his process, answered questions, and explained the meaning behind some of the elements of his work, all while creating a custom piece of work that our students all got the chance to contribute to. CCMS kicked off their 25 book campaign this month. Students and staff have jumped right into the challenge. The goal is for CCMS students to read 1 million words by the end of school. Parent-teacher conferences will be held for the middle school on November 21st during the day and November 30th in the evening. Parents should be on the lookout for information to come at the beginning of November. And finally, Cornwall Central High School, good news for October. Spooky season has officially arrived. Cornwall Central High School has been a bustle so far this October, with Picture Day kicking off for 9th through 12th graders. Seniors, meanwhile, were scrambling to their senior portrait appointments and submitting quotes for the yearbook. The school gathered on our home turf on October 6th to demonstrate widespread support for Breast Cancer Awareness Month by going all out in pink clothes and accessories. Spirit Week followed, bringing together and unifying the CCHS community as students and staff showed their school spirit with a variety of looks from Adam Sandler Day to Barbecue Dad vs. Soccer Mom Day. Yearbook photographers documented the multitude of themed outfits. The final day of Spirit Week ended with a pep rally. Teachers and students alike joined to participate in several games, such as musical chairs and McDonald's Happy Meal races. Although the homecoming game was canceled due to unpredictable circumstances, the dance still went on. The cafeteria was packed with students dancing and laughing with one another. Everyone had a great time. Last week, students engaged in the Safe School Ambassador training, and there has been an influx of students participating in community service activities throughout the year so far. Looking forward, CCHS is proud to be holding the annual Fall Blood Drive tomorrow. Also, in the coming weeks is Halloween, so have your costumes on hand.
Kate and Nick, thank you for that good news. Really appreciate it. So that brings us to our next item, Superintendent's Report. Terry?
Thank you, John. So first, we wanted to, on behalf of my team and the rest of the district, just thank the entire Board of Education for your volunteerism stepping into this role. It is Board Appreciation Week. So we have a few tokens of our appreciation in front of you, a place for you to take copious notes during these meetings, and then a gift certificate for you to hopefully enjoy with your family after one of these meetings. So just a small token of our appreciation. We wish we could do so much more for you because you all do so much for the students, families, and staff of our district. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We appreciate each and every one of you.
Thank you, Terry. Very nice of you all. Appreciate it.
And last thing that I had was just kind of good news from the UPK front. Megan and I spent the last 2 weeks visiting our 4 UPK classrooms. So every provider just had such amazing things to say about our families and our students. So we got to partake in music in the classroom at one provider where they were distinguishing between letters and numbers and shapes. One of the providers, I made my own kid cry. I don't know how, but I just said hello as he was waking up from his nap. So I think he wasn't quite awake yet, but what wonderful visits. It was definitely Fire Awareness Week, so we had a fire truck at one provider. Another provider had just all activities centered around fire prevention. They were making fireplaces, and play area was centered around fire prevention. We had volunteer firefighters join one classroom where they asked all questions about their cats and what their mom does and dad does. But the volunteer firefighters were good sports with them, and then they really got to partake in standing next to the fire engine and jumping aboard. So it's great to see us in year 2 20 more kiddos, and they haven't missed a beat. But it's been a great experience for the district. So Megan and I thoroughly enjoyed our time in those classrooms.
Great, thank you for that, Terry. Brings us to the president's report. Let me try to be somewhat brief. First, in terms of committee work, Louis, thank you and your team, the committee members, for the facilities committee meeting, talking with Palumbo Group, having them come here tonight. I thought it was a very informative update, and appreciate the focus on the lessons learned, so thank you for that. The next bit of thanks I want to express is to Bass Chakra. As everyone knows, he's our voting delegate to the New York State School Board Association annual meeting tonight. They are actually voting on a number of resolutions. It started at 4. I don't think Bass will be joining us. Hopefully, he'll be done before we are, but my goal is to be done before he is. So let's see if that can work. And then the last thing I want to update everyone on is, we went through establishing our board goals last time. I appreciate everyone's work in getting that document to where it is. Terry, Jim, and I met and started talking about the engagement survey. And we've identified a few providers that offer such services. If anyone, this is just a clarion call for anyone who knows of any providers to reach out to me. Let me know the names so that we can start that process rolling. I think we've established that we'd like someone who has national reach to have a good database with which we could judge the results by and the like. But please, if you have anyone in mind, please reach out to me before let's say, the end of the week. If we could get that commitment, I'd appreciate that, okay? And with that concludes my report. That takes us then to next item, new business, consent agenda. Is there any items in the consent agenda that someone wishes to discuss separately? We have items 1 through 6, and not hearing anyone asking for any items specific to be pulled. Could I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Brendan. Thank you, Louis. Discussion? All in favor of the approval of the consent agenda?
Aye.
Say, any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you, Christian. Please let the record reflect that Christian Brunelli abstained from the consent agenda item. All right, that takes us then to our next item is our second round of recognition of visitors. Is there anyone that wishes to come forward and be recognized? Please do so at this time. Very well. Closing comments from the board. Let's start with Kate.
I think that also Nick and I just wanted to comment on the fact that we're excited for this. Excited for this Thursday because I think with a couple other student board members, or not student board, student government members, we're going to be virtually meeting with students from RI and discussing the potential of implementing the drop schedule. So I'm just looking forward to that.
And I was also going to add to what Kate was saying, because I forgot to speak of it in the good news report. But pretty much CCHS students who hold leadership positions were invited to join the Student Leadership Council program. And this program is aiming to provide a platform for dedicated and motivated students who would like to take an active role in shaping the future of our school. And one topic we're discussing, which Kate just brought up, is about the drop rotation schedule. So we are meeting virtually with Rye High School students, and we're just going to ask them questions and get their opinion on how the schedule affected them and if it affected their grades, basically stuff like that, their mental health and standards like that. So, yeah. Thank you.
Well, that's fantastic. We look forward to your input and feedback on that. Thank you. Louis?
Thank you. Thank you guys for the reporting. As everyone's going to say, it's what we love. And I very much appreciate your engagement and your involvement, your questions tonight, and seeking out the other students in Rye. That's important. Relative to the school reports, the million-word challenge, it's a fantastic goal to try to hit, a million words read. I love it. A person dear to my heart would always say, readers are leaders. It's out there. So it's a good thing to aspire for. Terry and your team, thank you very much for the thank you. We got the raises this year, so it's all good. Thank you. And just briefly, everybody have a safe and happy Halloween. Be careful out there.
Thanks, Louis. Christian?
I'm going to give some people further down the line the chance to say things first, so I'm just going to pass tonight.
Great. Carl?
I just have a couple things. Councilman Kalor from the Woodbury District, he asked me if I would bring this up to Kate and Nicholas, I guess. They're having a polar plunge on the 21st, and they have what they're calling a Cool School Challenge for the students. So I just wanted to pass that off to them, whatever, you know what I mean? But it's for the Special Olympics. It's a fundraiser. I told them I'd bring it up tonight at the school board meeting, so I brought that up. And Kate and Nicholas, I would keep encouraging you to do what you're doing with your feedback. I was at a Orange County School Board meeting last week, and Superintendent Elsie Rodriguez and a student, Michael Martinez, were there. And they had a phenomenal program there, I thought, with student feedback. So I would encourage you to keep doing it. And that's one other thing, John. There was a couple people over the last few weeks that had reached out to us, and I was just wondering if we ever gave any feedback. Mrs. Liebert, she had a couple things. She asked about the academic committee, possibility of doing something with that. She sent a letter or came here to the school board, so I was just wondering if we ever got back to her on that. And Mrs. Long, I know she was interested in a few things, and really appreciate if somebody could get back to her. It was directed that way. I think she was looking forward for, So, and that's it. Thank you.
Brendan?
Thank you, John. Yeah, Kate, Nick, great questions tonight, great insight. Really are contributing a lot from that end of the table, so thank you, and as Carl said, please keep it up. I will choose tonight to say nice words about Bass since he's not here. No, he took on a heck of a burden with that and has done a great job. Really is a great service, and you realize as you go through those resolutions how great it is to have the full voice of the board reflected, because they're not all layups, so I really do appreciate him going through that, and hopefully he hears these good words at some point in the future if he goes back and listens to this, because that was a great service to the board. Other than that, just thank you to other people who aren't here, the Palumbo group. That was a very informative presentation, and again to the Facilities Committee for making that happening. I think information only helps, even if it's not exactly what you want to hear at the time you want to hear it. I think it's certainly better than, as Christine mentioned earlier, filling in the gaps. And I think we can all feel better as a board and a community about the direction and success of the project so far. And that's it. As Louis said, we won't meet until Halloween, so everybody be safe out there, and we'll see you in November.
Christine?
Throwing me off here. I was looking at the calendar because I'm at the whole Halloween thing. So, pardon me. Thank you to the Palumbo group. I think it was good information and good filling in the blanks, so I appreciate that. And hopefully folks will either spread the word or direct people to come listen to it, because I do think not everyone is fully aware and it can get misconstrued. Kate and Nick, great. Kate, I'm so glad you asked the question about parking. I know that that is a significant rite of passage. So I'm behind you. Teachers will have to walk further for, the students to get their spots next year. So, great to have that top of mind. And I'll just mention, Halloween's coming up. So that first weekend in November, Nick, right, is the school play? So the first weekend in November, the high school is putting on Radium Girls, which is a drama, but it's pretty significant topic, and it happened right over in Orange, New Jersey, which is pretty cool that it's so close to home, so to speak. So I'm giving you time to put it on your calendar. I'm not going to wait until the 30th to tell you about it, but I encourage you to come out and see the great work that they've been doing since literally the third day of school. So thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Richard?
Thank you. So Kate and Nick, great job. I'm really impressed by the initiative you guys are taking in getting students engaged and reaching out to other districts and gathering information for us and for the betterment of our entire district. So thank you. And I too attended the Orange County School Board Association meeting and saw that presentation with that student rep from Monroe Woodbury. I would be happy to share that with you. I think that's something that you could benefit from looking at and maybe even reaching out to that student rep, Michael, I think his name was. And yeah, I think it could be very beneficial for you guys, but keep it up. The only other thing I'll say is, I know last Friday we were supposed to have our board team work at the concession stand, and unfortunately, that game got canceled. But for a couple weeks, I actually volunteered at the concession stand. I left a lot messier than when I arrived, cooking those hot dogs. But the point is, we have so many great people in Cornwall, parents, community members who put so much effort and volunteer to make these things happen and to make our district great. So I just want to recognize all those people. So that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. Jim?
Thank you, John. Just a few brief notes here. I echo Lewis's thank you for the thank you. Thank you to my fellow board members for all of the hard work and time that you put in. It does always crack me up that we get a 5-day, we get a work week. We don't get a full 7 days. It's the 16th through the 20th. I don't know who makes that determination, but that makes me laugh every year. Yeah. Thank you to Palumbo Group for the construction update. I think that really, what was presented tonight and the questions that we asked and had answered should go a long way to clearing the air a little bit in the community of just some misperceptions that have been out there. As Christine said, if we don't have the right information, sometimes the story evolves to fill the gap that is not completely accurate. So I'm glad that we were able to have them here, ask those questions, just get everything on the record, and looking forward to continuing the project moving forward. And thank you, Nicholas and Kate. Really happy to hear. In past years we were talking about COVID and mitigations and all that stuff, and just happy to hear we're talking about Spirit Week and Homecoming, and all the fun stuff and the great rites of passage, and that's what we're here for, is that great student experience. So very happy that you guys shared that with us. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Getting back to Kate and Nicholas, I cannot remember in my time on the board where a student representative actually asked a question to a presenter. I think Kate has cracked the mold on that, and thank you for doing that, because we really do want to be collaborative, and we value everyone's insights and feedback, even those that we may not agree with. But thank you for rising to the challenge and being a member of this august body, this team. So thank you for that. And please, you've set the standard now, so now you have to live it. Just remember that, okay? But thank you both, really. Terry, thanks. Another new standard. I don't recall ever getting something as weighty as this before. But the sentiment is what really counts, and I really appreciate you and your team's efforts to make us feel valued and worthy as volunteers to this important district and the efforts of supporting taking Cornwall to the next level. Next, I want to thank all the board members. It is Board Recognition Week, and we do this because of our love for our kids and our love for our community and our love for the Cornwall district. So thank you for volunteering, for making the commitment and the sacrifice, and for bringing your best. We've been very participative this year, and I value everyone's input. I really do, and I thank you one and all for that. A lot has already been said. I'm not going to repeat that which I've already heard and agree with. So with that, I just ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Richard, on the second. Thank you, Brendan, for the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? No. Great. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. All right.